Trying season for the American. There's been some real flashes of what he can do in the early stages of the season. Hopefully, we get to see that Garrett Gerloff now at the end of the year.
Here is Garrett Gerloff, as I said, 14 points clear in the pecking order for the independent. GRT Yamaha actually confirmed the independent teams award winners after Argentina. Of course, they've got Kota Nazane contributing points for them as well.
Yeah, you can see here from yesterday's free practice, two very different conditions to what we have before us now. You can see the bright sunshine. It was 65 degrees track temperature yesterday. It's now 33 degrees.
Yamaha runners performing generally well around this circuit. They're known for having an adaptable package, are Yamaha, and they've got 3 riders in the top 5 positions on the grid.
Yeah, and it has been really impressive from Yamaha this weekend. You can see Jules Cluzel there in pit lane as well with Toprak. So we saw Jonathan Rea getting a bit of advice from Leon Haslam. Jules Cluzel is just after coming back in from the end of that Super Sport race, so that's about as up-to-date as it gets for Toprak.
Yes, nice and tropical as well by the looks of it for Jules Cluzel. Pools that they've set up at the back of the pit garages. A couple of umbrellas up in pit lane, as you can see. We've already seen shots of the spectators with their ponchos on, but they've been very rain-averse in this build-up so far to this World Superbike race. We just had some information from Anthony, our pit reporter, as well, that there are some spots of rain falling in pit lane. Up in the commentary box, I can tell you that we have both got smiles on our faces. This is going to make for something really interesting, and that's more than spots of rain. I tell you that we can see there, it's driving down, and it's actually now slashing against our commentary box window also.
Yeah, just looking down at pit wall as well. It's a concrete walkway down there, and that has now gotten very wet at this stage as well, so it is coming down heavily at this stage. We saw Alvaro Bautista go out on the full wet weather tyre, and certainly what we saw earlier in the season, if you think back to Aragon, where we saw the intermediate tyres work to really good effect for riders. It'll be interesting to see what tyres these riders opt for, because if it does tend to come in as a heavy downpour now, it is going to be a real challenge for those intermediate tyres. But if it stops raining, it could dry quite quickly.
In the Super Sport race, it dried very quickly, and it didn't rain for very long either. And the 2 riders who were at the back of the field and took a gamble on changing into intermediate tyres ended up at the back of the field and had lost over 1 lap just through the pit intervention time. So nobody's going to want to make a misjudgment on the tyres because it is potentially race ending.
Yeah, 62 seconds is the pit intervention time for World SBK. So that is the minimum amount of time that you have to spend in pit lane if you come in to change tyres. That's why it becomes absolutely critical to make the right choice in terms of what tyres you're going to go out on.
Scott Redding then about to make his way down pit lane on the number 45 Ducati. Redding, of course, with a strong recent run, 10 podiums in the last 12. A bit of a maths game, this one. He'd be the championship leader now on points. He really has had regular front-running pace, Redding. Those 2 rounds in particular, though, and a couple of missed opportunities elsewhere as well, ruling him out of the running for the championship. He's 3rd in the standings.
Just looking outside our commentary box window on the front row of the grid, Jonathan Rea's teammate Alex Lowes is out there, so he's going to be there to give Jonathan a little bit of his perspective about what it is right now. As it is, the rain is coming down heavier and heavier as Toprak Razgatlioglu leaves the pits to make his way to the grid.
In the build-up to this round, in the build-up to this race, everyone was talking about there must be one final sting in the tail for this championship. It's been such a legendary campaign. It would be unusual. It would be unfitting for it to go out on a whimper with Toprak finishing 1st today and Jonathan Rea finishing 3rd and the championship all settled. Doesn't look like it's going out on a whimper to me. This is going to be bravery at its greatest as far as the World Championship decider is concerned. Took the championship lead, did Toprak Razgatlioglu, this man. Jonathan Rea is the rider who trails in points. He's 30 down on Toprak Razgatlioglu, and he is a wet weather specialist. He performs well in these conditions. Toprak, throughout his Superbike career, when the weather has been like this, think back to wet weather races even earlier on this campaign, didn't have the headline results that he's had in other circumstances, but also because the possibility for more riders to get into the mix at the head of the field is that much greater. Think about Michael van der Mark and what he was able to do in Portugal. Think about Tati Mercado. He always goes well in the wet. The number of riders who could get in between Rea and Razgatlioglu will increase exponentially with wet weather. But I must say, Steve, the amount of rain that's coming down now makes me doubt whether we will even be able to start this race at the planned time. which may mean a bit of a get-out-of-jail-free card potentially for Toprak Razgatlioglu, because the visibility there is not going to be good enough to go racing, surely.
Yeah, that's biblical rain at this stage, and certainly you're going to expect to see the start delayed for these riders. You can see out of our box again, Michael van der Mark's running off the grid. Quite a few people making their exits from the grid now as well, and you can see as Toprak makes his way to the grid, just these conditions aren't going to be possible to start the race on time.
Yes, I think that was almost foretold, wasn't it? That was an inevitability, because once we saw the rain coming down, the spray in these kind of conditions would be impossible to ride unless you hit the front. So Razgatlioglu with a little bit of pre-race acrobatics to scale the pit wall, and can now make his way back into the garage, which means we can continue to build up what is going to be a fascinating World Championship encounter. This man, Jonathan Rea, the reigning world champion, that's the visibility that we're talking about there.
Yeah, absolutely nothing out there right now for these riders, and certainly a bit too dangerous to be going out on this track, especially considering that they haven't been out in wet conditions at any stage here in Mandalika. So a real challenge for everyone, and the right decision being made there by the organisers.
Everyone making their way back to the pit boxes. We saw this for the support class.